Up on pole position here today with Thomas Leboutelet and BMW alongside. Then it's Porsche. Disappointment in London. They bounce back to start P3 ahead of Nikolai Sejak in fourth position, the Polish driver who makes his debut for Nissan. Then it's Pole Europe for Mazda, P5. Valerio Gallo in the Honda NSX is sixth on the grid. Lucas Binelli lines up P7 for Mercedes AMG, and Al Flair with the Saudi Arabian driver for Toyota, P8. De Bruyne lines up P9. And then you've got Giorgio Mangano in 10th position for Lexus. João Jesus for Ferrari in 11th position. And Jay Murphy, the McLaren driver. A lot of support for him here tonight. And now, of course, our first look at the tyre strategies for the first time. Now, we can see the top two, Drumont and Leboutelet, they've started on the soft combative tyre, which to me indicates that they're going to try and make a break early.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've seen the pace from Drumont in qualifying, and of course Leboutelet, both very quick over a single lap. Last thing they want to do is ruin the ability to run that pace by running in a pack. So, yeah, go for soft tyre. I'm surprised to see Sejak there running the hard tyre in P4. So he will be basically in the way of all the medium runners behind, but the longer he can keep them there, the better for his race. So definitely some strategy in those tyre calls already. Yeah,
it seems like he's sort of trying to go ugly early, as it were. Get those hard tyres out of the way as soon as he possibly can. Hold the pack up while they're all quite close behind and see whether he can use that to his advantage. Well, let's see what will happen. Who has called the strategy right? Who will be taking the checkered flag and those all-important 6 points? We're about to find out as Gran Turismo World Series 2 for the Manufacturers' Cup here in Berlin is underway. Drumont and Subaru lead them down towards the first corner, followed by Leboutelet and then Serrano and then Sejak in the Porsche and the Nissan respectively. Don't expect any dive bombs down into that first corner, but Serrano closing up. I say that, there are some dive bombs taking place as Jura is making hay whilst the sun shines. He's already on the attack against Sejak, but Sejak goes back through on Valerio Gallo as well as Jura, back up into fourth. So moves being made in the mid-pack there, and Sejak looking a little bit vulnerable as we expected on those hard tyres.
Yeah, Sejak there showing Jura the outside of the circuit, really hard defending early on, but you're seeing the difference there, those hard tyres. They take a while to fire up, they're going to be cold right now. When they're cold, they have less grip. So right now, Jura, Benelli, Gallo all making advantage of the fact they have a softer compound, is up to temperature quicker, and they're just able to drive by him like he's standing still. You could argue maybe that's not a bad thing because they're not going to squabble so much, but if you're Sejak, you've gone from fourth to seventh in about 3 corners.
Yeah, losing track position means, of course, you're going to have to gain that a little bit later on. You can see fairly robust driving from Sejak coming through the Michael Schumacher S there as well. He's just got Alifa in the Lamborghini right behind him, who's on the medium compound of tyres. Then you've got 3 other hard shod runners. Meanwhile, sharp end of this race, nothing really to report from Drumont and Leboutelet. They've cleared off about a second or so ahead of Jose Serrano, as one would begin to expect. First corner incident here is under investigation, as we can see on our screen as well. We'd love to get a replay of that and see exactly what happened. We did see some dive bombs to the inside there for Pole Euro, but was there a bit more that meets the eye that we perhaps didn't quite manage to make a break of? Either way, we go on to the Nordschleife layout for the first time, and it's Drumont in front from Leboutelet, and now is where those soft tyres on these medium speed corners are going to be really having their advantage.
Yeah, and you wouldn't know the GP circuit is in any way related to this track when you get onto it. It's completely different. You go from long runoffs to barriers being far away, gravel traps, to basically if you make a mistake, you are in that barrier. And lots of curbs here, you have to memorise which ones you can and which ones you can't touch. It's a unique challenge just to get around here on your own, let alone when you're sharing the circuit with 11 other maniacs. So a lot of fun here. But speaking of maniacs, it's Valerio Gallo in the NSX. Very, very fast driver and trying to close the gap between himself and Jose Serrano. So Serrano is the leader of the medium runners. This is something you have to keep an eye on right now as we go to the front of the field. Drumont having to try and defend from Thomas Leboutelet. He's going to look maybe around the outside here. Not really a spot to get that done. But again, we're seeing the Achilles heel of that Subaru. They've ended up able to drive up to the back of it, but decides better of it as Thomas Leboutelet. He's going to stay in second place for now.
Drumont a little bit deep though going into that right-hander. I wonder if that might have compromised him a little bit, but he's certainly feeling the pressure here of his compatriot. The two Frenchmen at the sharp end of this race, and you can see how Leboutelet is able to use that slipstream to his advantage to close up. I don't think he's going to invent something into this section of the circuit because it will both send them into the barrier, and indeed Leboutelet thinks better of it, but the question is here for Kylian Drummond, how long can he keep Le Bousselet behind? Is it going to cost them time, though, as well? Because Serrano's there, 2 seconds off the back of them. If the top two start squabbling amongst one another, all that's going to do is bring them back into the gap that they've created and bring Serrano, Gallo, potentially, into play for this.
Yeah, think of the long game here, because everyone's got different strategies, everyone's trying their own little thing here. So I think if I'm Thomas Le Bousselet in that BMW, I'm thinking, right, okay, I know I'm going to pass this guy on the back straight if I'm within half a second. So I'll just stay there for now and let this guy pull me along, because in the medium speed corners, that Subaru is super quick. Anyway, back to T1. I think there was an incident here with Giorgio Mangano. Contact there. Oh, it's a Supra there. Toyota getting spun, kind of brilliant, but then Mangano getting spat out by João Jesus there, so I'm not quite sure. No further action from the stewards. I think that was just everyone tried to go for the same bit of tarmac there, didn't they?
It's difficult, isn't it, when it concertinas up in corners like that, especially in the first corner, and you know it's not particularly wide part of the circuit. It really does bottleneck up, so I guess race direction just deeming it, first corner dramas, don't do it again. As long as that doesn't happen any further times, then it should be all right. So let's look at the drivers here who are on the hard compounds of tyres, the likes of Sejak, Jesus, De Bruyne and Murphy. How are they going to play this one? Because, of course, they're hemorrhaging time at the moment. They're sort of taking the pain early on, but in theory, the race will come back to them in the latter stages, depending on what strategies they go for. You can see that brought up on our screen at the moment. You can get 2 laps out of the soft tyres if you're particularly careful, but if you're the likes of Le Bousselet and Drummond, I mean, look, they've cleared on 3 seconds at the sharp end of this one. They're not hanging about here. They're not saving their tyres, are they?
Yeah, but look at this as well. The difference here in speed up the hill. Just in that draft, I'm surprised the Bousselet went for 6th gear there, maybe just to save that little bit of fuel. Fuel is also a concern around here, by the way. You have to make sure you're fueled up the right amount to get to the end. Sounds simple, but it's hard to do in practice when you're there driving these things around the ring. But yeah, as you say, Tom, like, it's just trying to make sure you don't fall too far back at this point. And it just, I get the impression that the Bousselet is just kind of biding his time. We see the background there, Jose Serrano, that is the gap visually to third position and the start of those medium runners. So for the carousel for the first time, great bit of racetrack there. You really feel the car fighting for its life through there, and Gallo there leading the charge for 4th place onwards. But I say, if anything, falling back from Serrano a little bit.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out, because I was mentioning about the hard shot runners, damage limitation for them, but exactly the same story for the medium shot runners. You've got now 3 sort of sets of drivers all in their own group, all running their own strategies, and this is what happens in the Manufacturers' Cup when you have races like this, is that they're not necessarily the most action-packed ones in the first couple of laps, but towards the end, once all the strategies all work out, the fuel stops, the tyre saving and so on and so forth, once they've all taken place, you get a really exciting crescendo to this race. So the likes of Drummond and Le Bousselet, fine, the race is great for them in these early stages of it, but the latter stages, they're going to be taking that pain that the drivers on the medium and the hard runners are suffering from now, so they're going to be slower towards the end of the race, and the converse for those behind.
Yeah, coming through the last third of the Nordschleife. Now, my favourite bit of racetrack this, it's just so fast, so flowing. You have to really trust the car through here, especially through this section here. You come over the Flansgaard jump, see it coming off the floor there, and then you're met immediately with the Stefan Beloff S coming up now, where the car just skips all over the place. You almost have to just trust in that mysterious aerodynamic thing that you can't see, but it is there, and then just thread the car through the curves. It's an exhilarating piece of racetrack, but it is very much one at a time through there, as Gallo has pulled away slightly from Paul Ura. Now, what I'm interested in seeing now is whether Drummond has managed to gap Le Bousselet, which he has a little bit, a second now. That is kind of getting out of draft range, so that might mean Le Bousselet won't be able to pass here going down towards T1.
Yeah, let's see whether Le Bousselet can use the straight line speed to his advantage if he can close up, as you say, from that gap that has been created. What about Lucas Benelli, Mercedes-AMG? Benelli, we can see him there, very interesting driving position that he has. He sort of sits quite close to the wheel, almost on it, really, whereas you look at Paul Ura, much more relaxed in terms of his arm positioning there. And now Benelli has got the bit between his teeth because he's got the slipstream and he's got the straight line speed to take advantage of Paul Ura as we come down the Döttinger. Side by side we go between the Mazda and the Mercedes. It's going to be nice and easy for the Mercedes to go through, but what about, yeah, exactly that, what I was about to say, the Honda, because they're going to get boxed in here. Valerio Gallo loses 1 place, loses 2 places potentially, because Paul Ura is now side by side with Gallo as they come up and over the rise. It's always a bit tense and a bit sketchy coming through here 2 by 2, but Gallo just decides to not fight it too hard. as the top two at the sharp end of this one come into the pit lane at the end of the first lap off the soft tyres. Now, which way are they going to go in terms of their strategy?
Yeah, fresh set of the virtual Dunlop tyres going on. Our first Dunlop pit stop, I think this is, Tom. So cool to have Dunlop, of course, now as official partner of the Gran Turismo World Series. What's going on though? So softs come off, mediums go on there for Drummond. Same for Le Bouteille as well. Kind of Bruin coming in, getting off those hard compounded tyres early. Only doing 1 lap on those. So I guess going for 3 on the medium then, or 4 on the medium. It must be.
It's going to be an interesting one to see how that works out. You know, medium tyres, they're okay, but, you know, in terms of their longevity, certainly not as good as the hard tyres. The converse is the hard tyres are a few seconds a lap slower than the medium. So I guess he's just trying to take the pain for that and get off it. You can see there he's a full-time automotive engineering student, is Kai de Bruin, so he's well versed in sort of adapting to changes on the fly. And let's see whether that's one that will pay off for the Dutchman, who, of course, as we know, is still seeking his first podium in the Gran Turismo World Series. Meanwhile, sharp end of this race is now occupied by Jose Serrano, who's in the lead. Lucas Benelli, who, of course, we saw getting ahead of Jura and Gallo down the Dottinger at the end of the last lap, now sits in second in the Mercedes AMG. Jura's into third. Gallo's here just keeping a watching brief in fourth place. It's interesting as well, looking at the likes of Drummond and Le Bouteille, because they went from the soft to the medium tyres. I mean, Le Bouteille, he has to follow what Drummond's doing if he doesn't want to lose track position. That's the problem with being second on the road. You've kind of got to follow the strategy and then work it out later on.
Yeah, I mean, that's not always a bad thing though, because I think if the positions are reversed, you'd just see the same sort of thing. You would see the Le Bouteille leading from Drummond. It would just be a waiting game. And sometimes it is that. I mean, it's a high-speed game of chess. I say that a lot in these broadcasts because it is. These guys are at the level now where strategy often decides the race. The actual drive performance is so close. So we'll keep an eye on those and keep you informed. Benelli's struggling there for the first part of the Hudson-Back complex, just trying to get the car turned in. Of course, that AMG front engine, so prone to sometimes a little bit of understeer. Looks like it's really struggling with the front end through there, but able to keep the pace for now. Meanwhile, looking down the field, Sejak on the hard compounded tyre is ahead of Giorgio Mangano, who started on the medium. So Sejak having a very good race at the moment, despite starting on that slower tyre.
Yeah, we know that Mangano, of course, was caught in some bother, don't we, down at that first corner, which kind of started the Lexus drivers' race off on the back foot. And they've, bear in mind, they're reigning champions. Lexus have had a dog's day so far of 2025. It's not been brilliant. Pointless in London and now down in 7th place for this. They'll be really hoping for fortune to favour them in the second half of this race and also in the second half of the Gran Turismo World Series for 2025 as well. Benelli a little bit wide there, just going through that right-hander. Might allow Jura and Gallo to close up just a touch. It's, again, very much one at a time through this part of the lap, but you wonder whether Benelli's just starting to push a little bit harder, maybe just making a couple of mistakes and allowing a bit of a sniff of an opportunity here for Jura and Gallo possibly to see where Benelli is a little bit weaker, maybe on the exits of the corners or the entries to the corners, wherever it may be, and use that to their advantage to try and create an overtaking opportunity.
Yeah, I get the impression Benelli actually is maybe holding these guys up a little bit at the moment. We'll see though. He needs to try and bridge that gap, because we know Paul Jura will go for a move. We know Gallo will go for a move if he sees one there, so always one to watch out for.
So Serrano it is that leads 2.5 seconds to the sharp end of this race. He's still got the 3 hard shot runners of Sejak, Jesus and Murphy, the 3 newcomers, 3 out of 4 newcomers who are racing in this one. I have to say, Nafir Al-Flia, the Saudi Arabian driver making his debut in this event, is doing a great job of things in the Lamborghini, currently sitting in P5. Meanwhile, this is Mangano returning the favour on Sejak, just coming through that left-hander.
Yeah, I think that's all the indicator on there from Sejak, just basically saying, yeah, go on, mate, off you go, don't worry about it, pull me along. And yeah, there they are. Jesus there as well, of course, right behind Sejak. And man, that's that 458. I haven't heard a V8 Ferrari like that for a while. Sounds great, that thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, you would say that, now that you've just gone and bought one.
And it's
not a 458, but a Ferrari V8.
All right.
No, it's a cracking sounding car. It's to 9,000 RPM out the box, that car. It's the last naturally aspirated V8 Ferrari ever made, and probably likely to have ever been made as well, with Jesus behind the wheel, piloting it in 8th position. Meanwhile, second, third and fourth, still running nose to tail with one another. Benelli ahead of Jura, ahead of Valerio Gallo as they come over the rise. So all pretty steady at the sharp end of this one, but Serrano doing a good job of having built a gap actually to the trio of drivers. I say fairly steady because Jura is now on the attack against Benelli as they go side by side, and the door is going to open here for Gallo. There's a bit of contact in the mid part of that right-hander there as Benelli just sort of almost they merged into one. The upshot is the Brazilian driver drops 2 places.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that coming. I think now these guys have been waiting to sort of be released from Benelli, and I think we're probably going to see Benelli fall to the back of these guys now. He had a good effort having the Mercedes up there, but just hasn't quite had the same level of precision and pace as these guys early on. So keep an eye on Paul Jura, keep an eye on Valerio Gallo to go through the carousel for the second time. Still more than half of this race left, so a lot can happen at this point. A lot of pit stops still to come as well. Big question really is whether a lot of these medium runners, are they going to box at the end of this lap?
Yeah, it's interesting looking at the second times. They all look pretty good out there. I mean, they're not going to be as quick. As Drumont is a little bit deep there with Laboutelet all over his rear wing, and I just wonder whether Drumont's mistake is just going to give the opportunity for Laboutelet to try and attack, and is he going to use that to his advantage? Where are they up the road to Murphy? About 1.3 seconds away from the Irish driver, so that could come into play here as well because Murphy's on a slower compound of tyre and could be a bit of a cork in the bottle. It might favour Laboutelet, it might favour Drumont if it works out really. Let's have a look at what happened meanwhile with Benelli. So you've got Jura here on the outside. We're in a flat out part of this circuit, and then Gallo is going to get a bit of a biff. Does a very good job to keep it on the straight and narrow. The upshot is though, as we said, Benelli losing 2 places.
It was fine. I think it was fine. It's just hard racing, you know. They both came out okay, and I think that, yeah, no further action from my point of view anyway. But I'm not a steward as much as I try to be.
Drumont on the inside there of Jay Murphy, and now this is important here for Thomas Laboutelet as well. He needs to get ahead of the Irish driver in that McLaren as soon as he possibly can, because all the time he's stuck behind him, he's losing track position, losing time that he's then going to have to gain back up later on in the race. And is Murphy going to have anything to do with defending it? He is. He sort of parks the car on the apex there, denies an opportunity for Laboutelet. So this is music to the ears of Kylian Drumont. Side by side they go. Laboutelet's got the inside line and surely will now finally take the position, but you know, he's lost about a second or so in relation to his compatriots.
Yeah, that is going to be huge for the BMW's race there, because now they've lost that slipstream, they've lost that toe, and will he be able to get it back again? We know that Laboutelet has pace in that BMW, but has he got enough to claw back the gap to Kylian Drumont? This is the best pace for him down the straight here. That BMW does have legs, the Subaru does not. So let's see, but Drumont already now coming up to the back of the guys who haven't pitted so far. Oh, but Benelli back past Gallo.
Yep, so Benelli on the attack against Valerio Gallo coming down the Dossinger Her then. So the 2 medium shod runners still squabbling for position. The Mercedes is ahead for now, but what about Gallo in that Honda NSX? He's going to try and retaliate at the end as we come through the fast left hand, and we've already seen side-by-side action between these two. It just about stayed clean last time. This time, Benelli is able to hold firm ahead of the Italian as Serrano then comes into the pits from the lead of the race. Are the other medium shod runners all coming in? Looks like they are, aside from Valerio Gallo. He's decided to go for another lap.
Yeah, interestingly, I think that this is where the strategies are going to start to diverge, and it's like Knife Alfala doing the same thing as well, also going for the
So this is interesting actually, because we were talking about this to Mikael Hizal yesterday, who is very much involved as part of balancing the performance of these cars, and he was saying that the mid-engined rear-wheel drive cars, i.e. the Honda NSX, the Lamborghini, etc., they're a bit easier on their tyres compared to the front-engine cars like the Mercedes, like the BMW, for example, so, like the Lexus. So maybe they're using that mid-engine layout and they've just got a bit more tyre life in their pocket compared to their competitors, and that's what is giving them the comfort to carry on.
Yeah, but the downside to running those mid-engine cars is they're a bit nicer on turn and they rotate better, but of course that means they're a bit more sketchy. They tend to wear the rears a bit quicker as well. So Gallo might be leading right now, but he's going to have a car that's going to be handling, it's going to be pretty tricky getting this thing around at pace on on these worn medium tyres. But Gallo, we know he's a very quick, very capable driver, our 2021 Nations Cup champion, of course, but as you say, yet to taste success in the Manufacturers' Cup.
be interesting to see a comparison in the lap times here as well between the likes of Gallo and then Kylian Drumont, because they're both on the medium competitive tyres. Of course, Gallo's been on those from the start. Drumont has changed from the softs onto the medium, so they're both worn tyres, but Drumont's are in a far better condition compared to Valerio Gallo. Where were we last time around? So Gallo was an 8:09, but of course we saw Drumont pitting last time around as well. So we'll keep an eye on the different sector times. At the moment, Gallo is looking pretty handy at the sharp end of this one. So let's see how he can work this one out, and also what the likes of Drumont and Le Boutelet can do. But the gap between Drumont and Le Boutelet, we saw it increasing courtesy of Jay Murphy sort of interjecting between the two. It's now up to 1.6 seconds, so out of slipstreaming range.
You know, importantly, Gallo has got something that not really anyone else has right now, which is a nice big clear circuit in front of him. So right now he's just driving into that gap and trying to make as much of a gap as possible.
Now, I was talking about Mikael Hazal a few moments ago, and this is by magic he's come and joined us in the commentary box. Mick, great to have you here. How are you?
Hey, good, and you guys?
Very good. All the better for having you here. This is going to be, I think, the thinking driver's race, this one, isn't it? There's a lot of different strategies going on in terms of tyres and in terms of fuel. How do you see this one working out? Who, in your opinion, having watched it from the sidelines at the moment, is in a prime position?
So, like, you already talked about the tyre wear before, like the different strategies where some of the other drivers already went into the pits at the end of lap 2. Personally, when I saw that, I was already quite surprised to see them coming in so early, because normally you would try to use the softer tyre compound as long and as much as possible. So I'm kind of scared of their second lap on the soft tyre compound, so we might see some drama towards the end of the race.
So this is for the drivers that pit on the medium tyres at the moment. They're going to do 2 laps on the hard. Let's have a look here. This is what cost Le Boutelet ultimately against Jay Murphy. Murphy doing his own race, entitled to be in that position, but Le Boutelet, of course, has now hemorrhaged time to Drumont, and that's a big gap that he's now going to make up.
Yeah, but I think in those moments, like, if you're Jay Murphy, you know you're going to get passed by that guy. There's no point fighting, and you both cost each other time at that point. So I mean, as you say, definitely his own race, but he just cost himself time in the end. But I mean, Mick, of course, you've driven here tons of times. Virtually, you know these cars inside out. What would you say is the key factor to getting around here quickly and in one piece? I mean, all these different guys with different machinery as well. So
I think the biggest factor for this track is confidence. If you don't have the confidence to use the curves or like to know your car well around the circuit, then you're automatically going to end up losing a lot of time here. And we are already talking about the longest circuit in the world. So obviously there are a few cars on the track which are like easy to drive compared to a few other cars here, such as the Honda and the Ferrari, in my opinion, are a bit harder to drive than some of the other FR cars out there. But nevertheless, we are talking about the best drivers here in the world, and usually I also expect them to have like a lot of confidence in their own car.
So we have Kylian Drumont now in the Subaru going up the inside of Giorgio Mangano, just lets him through there. As I said before, just making sure to lose as little time as possible. And with Valerio Gallo, he's gone for that third lap on the medium tyres. They're pretty worn right now. That car's mid-engine. What can he be expecting handling-wise now for the second half of this lap?
I think it should be still fine towards the end of the lap, because I expect him to do either 1 lap on a hard tyre and then to finish off the race on 2 laps on softs, because normally the lighter your car is, it's also going to be more gentle on your tyres, and I think that's the objective of Valerio here.
Well, we're talking about the difference between the medium tyres and who's on worn tyres and who's on less worn tyres. Drumont, of course, changed over from the softs at the start of this one over to the medium tyres. He's now, of course, driving like he's left the gas on here, really, isn't he? Because he's up into 3rd place ahead of Giorgio Mangano, and again, that gap between himself and Thomas Le Boutelet, I mean, it's not really increased. It's still about 1.5 seconds, relatively speaking, but it's pretty stable between those two at the moment. So be keen to see how quickly Le Boutelet is going to be able to dispose of Mangano here, because again, this could cost him time, and ultimately it's going to mean that he's going to have to try and make that time up later on in the race.
I'm also a bit scared to see Mangano, due to the tyre life of his medium tyres at the moment. It's going to hold up Thomas Le Boutelet from the downhill section onwards, but maybe he can also try to overtake Mangano like Kylian did on Jay Murphy on the previous lap. If he's able to do that, then it's still anything open for the fight for the victory.
Well, catching the wrong driver at the wrong time on this circuit, Jimmy, as you well know, is a difficult thing to have to contend with. How do you manage that frustration inside the cockpit when you know you've got a quicker car, you know you're going to be able to find your way through? How do you do it?
Let me tell you, I'm glad there's not a mic in that cockpit, because you should hear me. I mean, you might have heard the Frank Stipler thing from a little while ago.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Either that, or I am glued to the high beam button. The get out of the way, move. Obviously, there you go. Yeah, through goes the Butler there, getting it done. And again, I think Mangano, Giorgio's been around for a long time. He knows the score. He's not going to sit there on the racing line and cost him both time. But gets out of the way, does it in a way that costs him as little time as possible. But yeah, good for now. Interestingly, Gallo's gap at the front has gone up now to 7 seconds. It was 4.9 at the start of the lap, but of course he hasn't pitted yet as well. So Drummond and Gallo, the ones to watch right now, I think, as well as Lebutele also has taken his pit stop.
So, how's this one going to play out? Because, of course, Drummond and Lebutele, they're going to be on the hard tyres for the closing stages of this race, whereas the likes of Valerio Gallo, what are these? They started on the medium, he's on the medium, so he's got to run the softs and the hards. The drivers that have run the hards at the moment, you've got Serrano, Ura and Benelli, so they're sort of taking the pain now in this middle stint of the race, hoping that, of course, when they get into the latter stage of it, that they're going to be able to just, drive through and wait for the seats to part, essentially.
That's true, but I think because of them only using the medium tires for 2 laps only, I see they want to use the soft tire compound for 2 laps as well. I'm just a little bit scared to see that the end of the second lap is going to be so, I don't want to say bad, but really, really slow for them, so that they can even see the finish lap here. So.
Oh, look at the closing speed here for Lebutele on Alflia, then going through on the Dottinger up into third place then for Thomas Lebutele. So those are your 2 effective race leaders here, Drummond and Lebutele at the moment, though they're in second and third on the road. Of course, Gallo, as we know, still has a pit stop. He makes that pit stop now. Goes for the medium tyres. Which way is he going to go in terms of this one? Surely it will be hard tyres for a middle stint and then soft tyres towards the end, or are they going to ignore that strategy and just do something completely different? Let's see how it is going to work out. Either way, Gallo has gone a lap longer than some of his other competitors, and it seems to have made it work okay so far, and he actually goes for the soft tyres, so he's going to have the hard tyres at the end of that one. Is that the way you'd have gone, Mick?
Wait, I'm just realising, Kenya and Thomas started the race on soft tyres, right?
Yeah.
So did they only do 2 laps on mediums?
Let's have a look. They did 3 laps on mediums according to
Okay.
one lap on soft tyres, then change them to the medium tyres.
Okay, then I was just seeing something wrong. My bad, I apologize.
Don't worry about it, we've all been there.
Like, what? Sorry,
I got scared for a second there, but...
Well, so look, the upshot is now you've got Drummond and Lebutele. They're now on the hard tyres to the end of this race, aren't they? They're not going to be pitting again because it would be completely pointless, you would assume.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, because obviously, the time you're going to lose, even if you went onto the soft tyres, it's not enough time that you would gain, essentially, even if you were on a quicker compound at the end of this one. So they're now in a position where, from now until the checkered flag, they're losing time compared to everybody else that's behind them. You've got Serrano, Ura and Benelli. They're on the hard tyres for the middle stint. What they're trying to do, I guess, is eke these out so they can get as fresh a soft tyres as they can for the end of it.
That's one of the plans they have, but on the same time to have as less fuel as possible.
Right.
Because for this race, we're using times for tyre wear around the circuit, which is a lot. Like, once your tyres are in a really bad shape, you're going to end up losing a lot of time compared to the other drivers who have much fresher tyres than you. And yeah, I assume at the end of this lap we might see Serrano going to go into the pits, as well as Paul Gura and Lucas Bonelli, unless they might go for a bit safer strategy to continue the race, or continue to get another lap on the hard tyre compound and finish off on the soft.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? You do 2 laps on the soft tyre, you can do it if you're, the tyre whisperer, but it's, we were talking about it before the start of this race. It's not an easy thing to do.
Yes, because if you want to do 2 laps on the softs, your out lap alone has to be so gentle. Because once you do Keenan did here, a slide on the tires, it's going to affect your tire wear in the end. And with times 4 for the soft tire compounds, this is something the tire, doesn't like in the end.
Really interesting insights there from Mick Gazelle. I've been keeping an eye on the front of the field, Joseph Serrano and Paul Ura there on the hard compounder tyre. I mean, never count these guys out. We know how quick the Spanish duo are. Serrano now 4 seconds the good of Paul Ura in that Porsche. What do you think, Mick? Do you reckon that strategy is the one? I mean, they're out on their own. I mean, they're on the hard tyre, but there's no one around them, not losing speed.
I think this might not be too bad to be on your own, because we've already seen with Kiepan and Thomas Labrutali on the previous lap. If you are like getting stuck with traffic in front of you, you're going to end up losing a lot of time, which is not really optimal for your own stint. So if you're like on your own, you can also dictate your own race. And yeah, let's see. I think the end of the race is going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, another look there of the pass of Labrutali on Mangano last lap. Back to lap 4, and we see that Labrutali has gone right back up to the rear spoiler of Kylian Drimont. That 1.5 second gap gone as well. There is a fuel to consider in this race as well, so he might have put a little bit less in. Looking at the, he's got about the same fuel as Drimont right now. So very, very close, and that's really basically happened because Jay Murphy went onto on the medium compounded tyre and overtook them both and then put them back together again. Yeah, it's interesting how it sort of caused this bottleneck effect now really here with Jay Murphy again being the cork in the bottle. We saw that with Labrutali in the opening stages of this race, and he sort of ended up back in exactly the same position here with Alifa, Drimont and Labrutali right on his rear wing, and let's see whether it's going to cost them time. I mean, Alifa here, again, he's not in a race with effectively what is the top two, and all the while they're stuck behind him. They're just hemorrhaging time corner by corner. They need to try and find their way through sooner rather than later.
But even if you want to let the other drivers behind you through because they're like in their own race in a different strategy, doing it at this circuit is so difficult to do, which some of the other drivers are also underestimating in the end.
Oh, look at that! Drimont getting aggressive, and Alifa into the wall! Side by side they go, that's going to cost Drimont. It might even open the door here for Labrutali to find his way through. Amazingly, they all managed to exit the corner in exactly the same positions and indeed the same direction as they entered, but that was pretty aggressive and robust, and a little bit scrappy from Kylian Drimont there.
Just as Mick was saying it there, he had to make the move. You have to just go for it sometimes, but it requires the other driver to let it happen. And right now there, Nathan Alifa did not allow that, but now putting indicator on after the damage is bad, I think. It's all right, I'm sorry, I'll get out of the way. And for good measure, hip check on the way by. These guys are not hanging around, but more importantly, all that time they spent there behind the Lamborghini has meant they've all lost time to the field. So what was a strong start for both Drimont and Labrutali might change now. Now, if you're Labrutali, do you go for the pass here? You've got the opportunity to do so. You're into the toe.
Well, it has worked beautifully here for Labrutali, hasn't it? Because if you remember, they had a 1.5 second gap a couple of laps ago, and it's brought the Frenchman right back onto the rear wing of the Subaru here, and brought him back into contention effectively for what could be the victory of this race. So let's see how this one is going to work out. We're heading towards the middle part of the lap, in towards the carousel section. There's no overtaking through this part of the lap, not unless you fancy getting your Christmas dinner through a straw. And Labrutali sitting in the wheel tracks of the Subaru as they come through this fantastically famous banked corner, arguably the most historical part of the Nordschleife layout.
I'm interested to see, Tom, sorry, what Gallo's doing, because he's now sort of stuck behind the first two that are on hard tyres. Let's have a look at this one more time. Yeah, slowest part of the circuit there. There's just no gap for error. As soon as there's contact, you find yourself to go straight towards the barrier. Drimont there thinking, oops, probably shouldn't have done that.
If you're a steward, Mick, we saw it was under investigation. Are you going to be looking at that, and is that cause for a penalty, do you think?
Personally, I'm not the person who wants to decide like those kind of incidents here. But if I want to make those kind of moves, I would be a bit smarter in the end. Because for sure, you don't want to end up losing a lot of time due to the driver in front of you having worse tires than you. And you also have like your opponent literally being behind of you.
Exactly as Jimmy said, by the way. Look at this. He's all over the back of Paul Ura like a bad rash here, trying to get his way past. Of course, Gallo on the soft compound tyre, Ura on the hard tyres. Fuel to consider here as well for the front runners. Look how much less fuel Serrano has got compared to Ura. He's got, what, 13 litres fewer?
Yeah, but this is a nightmare for Gallo, because he spent the entirety of the last half of the lap here stuck behind a car on hard tyres. He's just basically wasting that soft tyre life. I mean, maybe good for his plan, Nick. Maybe he's going to go try and do soft tyre for 2 laps. He can just sort of let the tyre rest a little bit, but I think it's not worth the time, surely.
Yeah, I think it plays in the hands of Paul Ura in the end, because not only can he hold Valerio Gallo behind of him, who's like on the soft tire compound at the moment. But once he uses the soft tire compound later on, he will have much fresher tires than Valerio on that stage.
Yeah, and also look at Lucas Bonelli. He's keeping him right in play here behind in that Mercedes as well. And Bonelli in this race still owes the soft compound of tyre as well. Now let's see what the slipstream is going to be like here for Valerio Gallo and for Lucas Bonelli. Jura is surely going to be a sitting duck. Gallo pulls to his inside, and you would imagine you're going to see Lucas Bonelli going through before too long. There he is, stage right. And Jura losing 2 places down the Dottinger Her. So now you've got a Honda and an AMG in front of a Mazda for second and third at this stage of the race. Now let's see what Gallo can do in the closing stages of this one, as Serrano does finally pit from the race lead. He had no choice, he's got no fuel left.
Yeah, out of box there comes the Bouteille on. Look at that speed difference there on the Subaru, like it's standing still. There goes the Team BMW and Thomas Bouteille up into what will be, we think, the overall lead, but we don't know. Right now it's for 10th on circuit, everyone's pitting in, so it'll all shake out once it's done. Oh, a little bit of a sideways moment there. You can see Thomas now really trying to get the hammer down.
So Jura then comes into the box, as well as De Bruyne. Serrano's in there as well, and we're going to see a smorgasbord of drivers, I'm sure, going on to the soft compound of tyres for the closing stages of this one, which is, as we know, going to handicap those who are in front. And we've got, what, 2 laps now remaining, and in 2 laps on any normal circuit, not that long of a time. 2 laps, though, at the Nürburgring 24-hour layout, you've got time to make it work.
Speaking of which, because I had another look on the tire history in terms of the strategy, and it is true. Thomas Bouteille and Kylian Drumont used the medium tires for 2 laps only, and not 3.
There we go.
So I have no idea why they think that 3 laps on the hard tires is the best strategy. But
there you go, guys.
we will see that in the end. Because I would like to see myself getting wrong here.
The person behind balancing the cars does not know what's happening. he's got no idea. But I did notice, though, the tyre wear of Valerio Gallo. Those rear tyres looking very sorry for themselves already, and he's not even onto the Nordschleife yet. So if Valerio keeps together, it's going to be an amazing effort. But I do think that I think being stuck behind the slower cars, pushing a bit too hard in that first lap might have cost him. We'll see, though. We stay with Le Bouteille and Drumont. These guys have been glued together all race. Good news, though, for Le Bouteille is he's got a 12-second gap in front of him, so he can just drive now into that gap. But of course, one eye in the mirror from this man at Subaru. I mean, Mick, you know the Subaru pretty well. How do you describe the characteristics of that car?
It's like through the high-speed corners, it feels amazing because it has so much downforce, and it's the fastest car, like Group 3 car-wise, through the high-speed corners. But like here, you can see the way how Kylian uses the gear for the exit of the corners. Like you have this car, like if you want to drive the gears quite well, you have to use like way higher gear in order to use the turbo boost already before exiting out of the corner. So because of that, it's really tricky to extract the most performance out of the gear set. But if somebody can do it, it's Kylian.
So what we now need to look at in this race, you've got Le Bouteille in 5th, Drumont in 6th position, but the gap between Serrano, Jura, etc. all behind. So the gap is what? 6.8 seconds. Keep an eye on that over the remaining 2 laps now of this race, because that is the effective battle for the race lead. From 1st to 4th, they owe another pit stop, and once they come into the pits, the lost time means that they're going to drop back into the mid-pack. Where that is remains to be seen, but for the overall victory of this race, you've got 2 hard shot runners of Le Bouteille and Drumont, and then you've got a plethora of soft runners all behind who are going to be, I'm sure, nipping at their heels.
No, interesting. One of those drivers, one of our new drivers, Sejak, right now in 3rd place. He's got the soft tyre left at the end of this, so he's going to bolt on the soft tyre on this last lap, and he's not too far off the lead. He'll be catching Bonelli as this lap goes on that medium compounded tyre. I think he'll start catching Gallo as well, because he's going to start falling off big time, I think, towards the end of the lap. So don't count out Team Nissan. They're looking strong. He's got a lot of fuel in there as well, so keep an eye on Sejak.
Yeah, former Manufacturers' Cup champions, Team Nissan. Just to remind you as well, they won it. When was it? Was it last year, year before? I can't remember now. It was a little while ago. It was a couple of years ago, wasn't it? Oh, look at this, Drumont and Le Bouteille, and Drumont is back through all the while we're wistfully talking about Nissan winning the Manufacturers' Cup. Drumont has sent one through on Le Bouteille, 4th, 5th position then. And the thing they need to be careful of here is if they start getting involved in a battle, if they start squabbling amongst one another, it's going to cost them time. It's going to close that gap down. I mean, already, we're what, a third of a way through this lap? It's come down by nearly a second.
I mean, we talk about guys squabbling together. This doesn't happen with these guys, Serrano and Ura. I always see these guys on circuit and they always drive to the maximum. Even if one is thinking, oh, maybe I'm a bit quicker, he won't go for a move, he'll just stay there and then maybe pass in a place that makes sense. So working together are the two Spanish drivers, Serrano and Ura. 7th and 8th currently now. A reminder, top 6 get points. Of course, you want to be as high up as possible, but sometimes grabbing a point is nice. And if you're Team Lexus, down in 11th place, not even off the board yet, this is not looking good for you in your championship retention.
Yeah, Lexus not having a particularly good run of things so far in the 2025 Gran Turismo World Series, and Giorgio Mangano just sort of compounding that, really. His race was sort of over by the first corner when he got caught up in all of that drama. Just a point, actually, as well, with Serrano and Ura. If you remember back to the Nations Cup in London last time when we were out, they had very respectful and clean racing right up until the last lap. But as you say, they were pushing one another very, very hard, but just not really sort of, ducking and diving and going for those dive bomb moves and working together quite nicely right up until the moment when they couldn't work together anymore.
I mean, Mick, you've raced with a lot of these guys, of course. You race them at home and, of course, these events as well as Paul Ura, I think, there finally gets past Serrano. So Ura now moving up into the lead of the Spanish duo. You race a lot of these guys at home. I mean, when you're in this situation, you've got a lap and a bit to go. Do you sort of think, oh, I know this guy's going to give me room, I know he's going to race me, or do you think, okay, it's out the window now, it's every man for themselves?
Usually, at this stage of the race, everybody thinks of their own race in the end, because it's like you only have like one more lap to go, so why should I even work with you in the end? Unless there's somebody else in front of you who you both might catch up in the end. So that's why you both might try to work together, and I think this is also the case for Paul Ura and Jose Serrano. Because we might see another position change at the end of the Döttinger Hill between those two, so that they can also try to minimize the gap to Kilian and to Thomas as much as they can.
Gap down to 4.5 seconds now between Le Boutelet and Drumont, as well as Ura. So, that gap, as we said, it's shrunk by 1.5 seconds over the course of this one. Gallo's Dunlop tyres, though, are going to be crying out for mercy at the end of this lap. He's going to come in for the hard tyres at the end of this one, which is going to put him a bit further down the order than he would like to be. He's got Lucas Pinelli, who, as we can see, is on the hard combat of tyres, and those two tyres are nowhere near one another in terms of the performance. About 9 seconds it is between the pace difference over the course of this lap. So that just goes to show you how worn out those soft tyres now are and how much performance it's costing the Italian.
This is typical Valera, though. He just maximised everything. Usually goes over the line, but he will have a go. Like, he will never just go, oh, I'll play it safe. Always goes for maximum performance to Scalo. But right now, as you say, he's been really struggling with the rear of that car, just getting that power down, letting the car, you see it's just moving out the corners. Luckily, then you've got a couple of corners left and a huge straight, so that'll keep it there. But yeah, he's wide there. But Nelly's through, he just can't hold on anymore. Those soft tyres have just fallen off. But do you reckon he got the best out of that? Do you reckon that was a good gamble for him, Mick?
Not really, because at first he also got hauled up by Paul Ura, I believe it was, where he also lost a lot of time there. And now, due to the end of the second lap, where the soft tires are not even there anymore, basically, you were able to see how close Lucas Bonelli was behind the Valerio throughout the entire lap.
I really think, I'm looking, sorry, we have access to the fuel numbers here. I'm sorry you guys don't at home, but right now the person with the most fuel in the top 4 is Sejak by quite some way. He's got 20 litres of fuel in the car right now to 6 and 4 and 7 from Jesus. So although Gallo is getting by here, there'll be a pit stop for the top 4 now, and I think we're going to see the Nissan driver probably come out in the lead.
Yeah, he'll come out in front of that group of drivers. Where will he emerge, though, in relation to everybody else that's behind? Because they've got about 10 seconds or so. Look at this, though. Side by side as Gallo tries to fight it back against Lucas Bonelli. They're both going to come into the pit lane at the end of this lap. They've got no choice. And how's this one going to work out in terms of fuel? Well, Gallo's got a couple of litres left, less in his tank compared to Lucas Bonelli. Sejak, as we said, is the outlier here. He's done a great job of just sort of being a bit anonymous in the middle stint, but saving fuel quite nicely.
And saving the soft tyre as well. Drumont and, of course, Le Boutelet will go on to the last lap, but they are going to be chased now by a hard-charging Sejak on that soft compounder tyre. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah, one lap of soft tyres is going to be a very welcome sight indeed. So let's see how this one is going to work out. So Drumont now goes through and into the lead. Le Boutelet as well. Valerio Gallo is going to emerge back onto the circuit, but where is Sejak? He's up into, what's that, 6th place, but he's got a brand new set of soft tyres relative to those in front who are a lap old. So he's going to be surely right on their heels and snapping away.
Right, so we have Serrano and Ura both out there on that 2-lap, or will be now a 2-lap lap old soft tyre. They will come off towards the end. Dumont and the Boutelet out there on what is a 3 lap old hard tyre, so they're gonna have tyre life, but it might fall away from them still.
But what we saw at the end of that last lap between Benelli and between Gallo, the soft tyre and the hard tyre, when they were really towards the end of their life, pretty even in terms of performance. So this is pretty much anybody's guess. At the moment, it's advantage here for Serrano and Ura, but how much tyre life have they got left? Are they going to be able to eke it out to the end of this lap? This is where the tension has begun to build. It's begun to bubble up, and surely it's going to boil over before the end of this race.
I mean, I thought Sejak was a little bit slower than he was there, but I thought it was a bit closer, but not quite there. But Mick, I mean, all the cards are on the table now. Call a winner.
Put it all on red.
It's that easy.
I still have to be a bit analytical. What is the thing like an expert here? But you have to think that Serrano has to try to pass through Thomas first.
Yeah.
So automatically, because of that, he's going to end up losing some time, which is going to help Kilian. So Kilian is potentially in a really, really good position because we already saw on the previous lap how much Valerio was struggling towards the end of the lap, on the second lap on the soft, and how close Lucas Bonelli was behind of him because of that. So it's going to be really close, but I think Kilian has got this.
There you go. Well, Mick, mate, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Great to get your actual expert analysis other than us just guessing the entire time.
A man who knows what he's talking about for once in the commentaries. Mick Al joins us here. Thank you very much to him. So we are now on the final lap of action here at the Nürburgring 24-hour layout, and it is Kilian Dumont ahead of Thomas Leboutelet. Both those drivers on the hard compound of tyre. 2 seconds the gap between themselves and Jose Serrano, with Pol Ura just a few tenths of a second down the road. I have to say, Jimmy, I think Sejak's race depends on how quickly he can dispose of Kai de Bruyne in 5th.
Yeah, I got to say, I thought it was a bit further on the road than he was there, so I got a little bit too excited for that one, I think. But the 2 guys at the front are going to be running the slowest, well, for a little bit anyway. You know, we've said about this soft tyre doesn't like going a second lap, but Serrano, Ura and Kai de Bruyne, who's in 5th place right now, 6th place, Sejak's by. Sejak's got by Kai de Bruyne, so Nissan now up into 5th position. And next car on the road after the battle for 3rd position. So let's see. We'll keep an eye on that as the sun starts to go down here at the Nürburgring.
Yeah, well, 5 seconds a gap. You know, you'd say that, well, that's not enough time to catch up. But this is the final lap. This is the Nordschleife. For 5 seconds, it's not that difficult to close that gap down over a lap as long as this one. Let's see the move then for the Polish driver in the Nissan against the Dutchman in the Toyota. He's going to switch it back to the inside. That is beautifully smooth there. De Bruyne just gives him racing room on the inside, and smooth and sweet as you like for Mikolaj Sejak as he elevates himself up into 5th place as he chases a podium down for Nissan here.
That was lovely move. You just carry the speed there and just up the inside of the armband. Nothing they can do by the time I see you. Move done. So the Boutelet falling off the back of Kilian Dumont, of course. At the moment, that will be 6 points for Team Subaru, 5 for Team BMW. Keep their dream alive, but that would be a double win if Kilian Dumont can keep this going for now. Behind them, Serrano and Ura, the Spanish duo, both on the soft compounder tyre, but they're on lap 2 of that soft compounder tyre, which means to about now it's going to be feeling pretty second hand. But then behind them, to keep things even more interesting, is Sejak in the Nissan there on brand new softs and driving fast right now.
Yeah, just looking at the sector times, it's pretty even between the 2 hard and the 2 soft runners at the sharp end of this one. 46 6s and 7s. Mikolaj Sejak on the new soft tyres, 45.8. That's in sector 8 on this lap. That's the most recent one that the drivers have gone through, just to give you an idea. So he's, nearly 6 or 7 tenths of a second quicker. He's decreased the gap down to nearly 3 seconds. He is going to be all over their rear wings to the end of this one. The question is, though, are we going to see Serrano and Ura closing up onto the back of Leboutelet? They're now closing up onto the back of one another and going side by side as Ura goes ahead of the Porsche. Now, has Ura got enough in his pocket to get onto the back of Leboutelet and Dumont for the victory here?
So here we go then, up into the last lap here at the Nürburgring. Into the night Lights illuminating the greenhouse. Kylian Drumont there, spit of flame from the exhaust of the BRZ. It's been a great drive from both of these drivers. Both Subaru and BMW have knocked it out of the park in terms of consistency, but now they're on that slower tyre, the hard tyre. It lasts a long time, but it's not fast. And Ura and Serrano, I think actually, if anything, the charge has sort of come to a little bit of a halt. They haven't quite got that same speed they had before earlier in the lap. But I'm still keeping an eye on 5th place. Sejak there on that new tyre. Through here, this section, very, very mechanical grip dependent. So if your tyres are good, you're going to be fast through here.
I think that Sejak could be on for a podium here. I don't know if the victory is going to be quite on the cards, but I think a podium could be a possibility, which on his debut in the Gran Turismo World Series would be a very welcome result indeed, for not only for him, but also for Nissan. He's just 18 years old, is Mikolaj Sejak, and this has been a brilliant strategy call so far. Sitting pretty even Stevens at the sharp end of this one. Let's see De Bruyn. He's lost a place here to Lucas Benelli. There's contact, more contact, a little bit more contact. Oh, it's fairly robust. It sends De Bruyn off onto the grass on the outside, and Benelli getting pretty robust there, finding his way through. I don't know if
he was there, Tom, for that. He was only just on the rear bumper, but that's not our job to think about it right now. Our job is to look at this as we now come through Flansgarten for the first time. Hop goes the car into the right hander using that high-speed aero grip of the BRZ. 1.1 seconds is a gap. Now Drumont knows if that gap is any less than like 7/10 or so, he's going to be a sitting duck on that straight, so he's pushing hard for this last section. Can the Bouteille give an answer in these last few corners before the Dodger Her?
I think it's going to be tough for Le Bouteille. Again, pretty even in terms of the tyre wear. Ura and Serrano's challenge is going to be coming to an end, but look an eye out in the background. Cue the Jaws music, because Mikolaj Sejak in the Nissan is now all over the rear wing of Jose Serrano for 4th position. He's about half a second or so away, and there's one big long straight remaining, and now you can see just how close that gap is between the 3 machines and the 3 drivers. Ura in 3rd in the Mazda, Serrano in 4th in the Porsche, Sejak in 5th in the Nissan. They come onto the Döttinger Her for the final time. Le Bouteille versus Drumont. The gap is about 1.5 seconds, and they're out of slipstreaming range as it stands for now then. So if Drumont can just keep himself on the straight and narrow, it's all eyes on the battle for the final podium place. And here we go then. Serrano splits the middle, Ura as well. But here comes Mikolaj Sejak on the inside in the Nissan. Has he got the straight line speed? Has he got the advantage to try and use it? The headlights illuminating the darlings as they blast their way down at nearly 300 kilometers an hour, 3 abreast. Sejak on the inside, Serrano in the middle, Ura on the outside as we come over the rise. Ura gets through and into 3rd. Serrano versus Sejak for 4th place as they come into the final corners of this race. And are they going to make it? Sejak goes through on the outside to the checkered flag. Kylian Drumont takes victory for Subaru here in Berlin ahead of Le Bouteille, and 3rd for Mikolaj Sejak for Nissan. What a phenomenal end to this race. On his debut in the Gran Turismo World Series, Mikolaj Sejak gets a podium position. Absolutely fantastic.
What a move from Sejak. That's move of the race right there. Just switch back on the last possible moment, and you know Paul Ura saw it, was like, oh no, he's there. Use the grunt of the GTR, and 3rd place on debut for the 18-year-old here in the Manufacturers' Cup. What a result there for Sejak and Team Nissan. But of course, your winner, Kylian Drumont, Team Subaru, take another win here in the Manufacturers' Cup. Le Bouteille 2nd, and Nissan and Sejak 3rd. Thoroughly enjoyable race here, and of course another one that was down to strategy ultimately. And I think maybe Serrano and Ura would think a little bit